they put me on a stress test and I failed. I didn't even know you could fail a stress test. I went from being 230 pounds down to 150, couldn't eat. I would eat like one meal throughout the entire day. So I would just nibble on the meal the whole day so I didn't throw it up.
In late 2019, Wendell was involved in a serious car accident and suffered numerous injuries to the spinal vertebrae. And in the following months, he progressively developed a collection of very strange symptoms which doctors really didn't know how to help him with.
I started to get migraines out of nowhere, gastroparesis, stomach pain, lower abdominal pain as well. That developed into more serious symptoms like tremors, rapid heart rate, intraocular pressure, just a lot of the classic dysautonomia symptoms.
It was not until 2021 that he finally got a diagnosis of POTS, being a condition of the autonomic nervous system, and it was at this point that he decided to take his health into his own hands. So using a combination of vitamins and minerals, he managed to basically turn his situation around 180 and is now well on his way to regaining full health. In his own estimation, he's recovered approximately 80 to 85%.
Vitamin D is called a vitamin, but it's a pseudo hormone, and it's also acts as a steroid as well. So I started taking that, and that's really what got me a lot into it. Research magnesium religiously, thiamine religiously, and then I ended up sticking to sucrosomial magnesium. And that's when I saw the huge difference. After I started taking that, my tremors started to go away. I felt like I was going to have seizures before I started taking this type of magnesium because I'd be shaking so bad in the middle of the night when I lay down. Thiamine HCl, 50 milligrams for 30 days. Tremors completely went away. Everything that was wrong went away at that point.
The three main nutrients which he attributes this success to are, first of all, magnesium, second, thiamine or vitamin B1, and finally, vitamin D. And today, I'm very fortunate to have on with me Wendell as a guest. So if you want to hear his story, make sure to stay tuned. So Wendell, thanks for coming on. Could you please just tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you?
Yes, my name is Wendell Varner, dysautonomia research and awareness advocate, 21 years old, based out of Charleston, South Carolina. And yeah, I would say that's pretty much it.
And so you're currently a neuroscience student at the moment. You're studying neuroscience.
Yes, sir. Arizona State University.
Arizona State University. Excellent. Okay. So once again, I found you on my group. You'd shared your experience and you'd shared some of the things that you'd been going through over the past couple of years. Could you give us a rough overview of the kind of health problems that you were facing back in 2019 or from 2019? Like, what's your story?
Okay. So, growing up, I played football, basketball, ran track. I was always a very healthy individual. And then October 11th, 2019, I got into a severe car accident. It knocked me out on impact, and I had 5 bulging discs and misalignment in my C3, C4 cervical vertebrae. And shortly after that, I started to develop dysautonomia symptoms. I started to get migraines out of nowhere, gastroparesis, stomach pain, lower abdominal pain as well. That developed into more serious symptoms like tremors. I fainted once, but never again. And rapid heart rate, intraocular pressure, just a lot of the classic dysautonomia symptoms.
Those symptoms that you're describing, those gut symptoms, the other neurological type things that you're experiencing, did they come all of a sudden or was it progressively, did they progressively get worse?
It was progressive. So I would say like once every month to month and a half, there was a new symptom for at least 7 months. And then that's when it was kind of like at its end point. That's when it was at its worst. So I would say around July of 2020 was at its worst.
Okay. And during this time, you were having physical therapy, is that correct?
Yes, I was having physical therapy, having massage therapy. I started to go to cardiac rehab, but that's when my symptoms got too bad. So I actually failed a cardiac test. So they put me on a stress test and I failed. I didn't even know you could fail a stress test. So that was an eye opener for me, especially being like 19 or 20 at the time.
Right. And coming from a previously athletic background as well, right?
Yes,
all of a sudden being unable to even conduct a basic stress test. That sounds very severe, that what you went through.
exactly.
Okay, and during this time they were investigating you. So you'd been to a couple of different specialists, is that correct? You'd been to a
Yes.
gastroenterologist for the gut stuff, you went to a neurologist?
I went to a neurologist that just said I had anxiety. It was crazy. Um, I went to three regular plumbing heart doctors, and then when I finally got diagnosed, I went to an electrical heart doctor, an electrophysiologist here in Charleston, and that's who diagnosed me.
Right, okay, and they'd given you the diagnosis of POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, right?
Yes, sir. 3 weeks after my diagnosis, I got COVID.
Right.
And once I got that, it took me down. And that's the time period where I was actually bedridden the most. I went from being 230 pounds down to 150. Couldn't eat. Um, I would eat like one meal throughout the entire day. So I would just nibble on the meal the whole day so I didn't throw it up. Um, very brittle, very brittle. Um, it was it was a crazy moment.
So you were saying that you were getting these cluster headaches as well.
Yes, that was in June and July of 2020. So about 6 to 7 months after the car accident is when it started. And they hospitalized me all 3 times for them. They ended up having to put me on steroids to make it go away. So they would put an IV in me, put some prednisone in it, and make me wait. And after like an hour or so, it would go away.
Had you done anything with your diet? Have you changed your have you changed your nutrition? Have you anything since then?
So I actually missed out a symptom. I actually was having histamine intolerance, and
An
that
MCAS.
that forced me to change my diet. So I could only eat pretty much the same things every day. I realized that meat worked, but then I couldn't digest the meat. So I was like, okay, that doesn't work for gastroparesis. Um, try vegetables. Um, I reacted to almost every single one, besides like broccoli and corn and carrots. Everything else I had a negative reaction to. So I ended up pretty much sticking to chicken because chicken helped me the best, and some breads. I would say actually mainly breads, even though I was trying to build weight at the time, but not so much anymore. And my histamine intolerance has gotten way better, but I couldn't really eat anything.
Okay, so you had finally gotten this diagnosis. You'd mentioned prior, so during what was it? During the investigation, they'd prescribed some medication, and you tried that, although you felt as though you didn't respond well to the medication. Is that right?
Yes. So in the beginning, right after the car accident, I was prescribed prednisone. The prednisone made my symptoms way worse, and I felt dizzy, and my heart rate increased. And then after my diagnosis, they put me on metoprolol, and I took one of those, slept for a whole day, and woke up, and that's when I fainted. So I was like, never again with that.
Okay.
So I stopped the beta blockers, stayed away from steroids, and started looking the nutrition route.
Right. So up until this point, you'd not been focused on any kind of natural alternatives. You'd not been looking at nutrients, and the doctors obviously hadn't recommended that you take any nutrients, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So what? So you took it into your own hands and you started doing research on how you might be able to improve this. What? So what did you start looking at? What did you start trying from a more natural perspective? Let's say.
So after I started looking at my blood test, this is actually how I started to research. So, I went to the ER so many times and had so much blood work done that I just compared all of my blood work from each time. And then after that, I said, okay, my potassium's low, but it shows my magnesium's normal. So there's something wrong with my kidneys. I was like, there's no way because my EGFR was high. So I started looking into magnesium, and I realized that with chronic hypomagnesemia, you can have a normal serum blood level, but it's actually deficient at the cellular level because 99% is found within the tissues and bones. So I started taking magnesium, and I realized I felt better, but the first magnesium I started to take was actually still really bad for me because it was chloride and I got really nauseous. It made me throw up a few times. Then I swapped to magnesium orotate, which I've only ever seen from that one brand. And I read that it was really good for your heart. And at that time, I still thought I was having some sort of like heart or gut issue mainly. I didn't realize it was stemming from everything in general, just in my nervous system. So after magnesium orotate, it worked, but it didn't work to my liking. I went to magnesium taurate. Magnesium taurate was way better with my cramps, but that's pretty much all it stayed at. And then I ended up sticking to sucrosomial magnesium. And that's when I saw the huge difference.
Okay, so this is a type of magnesium that I hadn't actually realized even existed before speaking to you. Could you just give us a brief overview of what this magnesium is? Because there's just one company who makes it, right? It's patented or something like that. So
Yes.
what is this type of magnesium? Because I'm really interested in this as well.
Okay, so when you actually look up the different types of magnesium, you'll see that typically when people say you want to bring up your magnesium levels, they say magnesium oxide is the worst. But this company takes magnesium oxide, which is bound to oxygen, and encapsulates it like a liposomal magnesium. So when you take it, you're actually getting the full effect of the magnesium within the pill.
It's getting
So,
into cells better.
yeah, exactly. And I didn't have to take the chloride because I was already having chloric acid issues. So I needed something that would bring up my levels without irritating my gut. And they
Uh,
also have a sucrosomial zinc that I also took that as well. And the zinc actually helped tremendously. I didn't realize that magnesium actually regulates the calcium dependent acetylcholine response. So after I started taking that, my tremors started to go away. I felt like I
mm.
was going to have seizures before I started taking this type of magnesium because I'd be shaking so bad in the middle of the night when I lay down. But when I took it, it all went away.
Okay, that's fascinating. How long did it take for you start to see benefits?
With just the magnesium alone, I would say probably about a week to a week and a half. But that's because I took a very high dose. I took like 800 to 1,000 milligrams a day.
Wow.
Now I currently only take 600 per day.
Okay, still, I mean, still a high dose, right? Because
Yeah,
the RDA is about 400 milligrams from food, right? Approximately.
yeah,
It differs, but then again, when someone's nervous system is stuck in this kind of hyperexcitable state, which can be seen as a driving cause behind POTS, which it sounds like
yeah,
you were stuck in, then of course that those super physiologic levels, the high doses can be necessary to bring things back into balance. So okay, that's very
exactly.
interesting, right? So you had immediately seen that, okay, you did some research, you started on magnesium, you found the right form of magnesium, and then you started to see pretty substantial benefits in a fairly short period of time, which is great. So I'm guessing that there you feel as though there is something going on with this nutrition thing, right? If you find the right
Yeah,
nutrients, perhaps that might help. So you'd read about it, you'd looked at your bloods, you've really taken things into your own hands. I mean, this is awesome hearing that you went this route. But so you started trying to figure out what on earth is actually going on with you because the doctors, the things that they prescribed haven't been working. And so you read about magnesium, and it's interesting because especially for neurological injury, I mean, magnesium is one of the best minerals that generally gets thrown completely out of whack when there's ever
exactly.
and any kind of brain or spinal trauma, any kind of neurological trauma.
Yeah,
Magnesium, as you know, magnesium exerts this inhibitory effect in neurons, in cells. And so when you
mhm,
have this subclinical or clinical magnesium deficiency, even if it doesn't show up on a blood test, then cells become super hyperexcitable. And this is one of the things that can prolong or maintain someone's kind of neurological imbalances. So again, super fascinating that you discovered that.
after I got over COVID is when I really started to go more into the whole neurological section of what was going on with me nutrition wise. And I started to look at your videos and Dr. Carolyn Dean's videos and research magnesium religiously, thiamine religiously. I realized also that for your parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, vitamin D regulates both. So thiamine and vitamin D actually work together, which I had no idea about. And they both need magnesium as a cofactor. I was like, what vitamin is actually a steroid? Because I realized that they were giving me steroids, and I realized that that would have been vitamin D. So vitamin D is called a vitamin, but it's a pseudo hormone, and it's also acts as a steroid as well. So I started taking that, and that's really what got me a lot into it because I realized that that's primarily where my headaches were coming from. But it couldn't come up without the without the magnesium. So I stayed with a high dose of magnesium and took a very low dose of vitamin D. So I was taking 2,500 to 3,000 IUs a day because when you take higher doses like 10,000 per day, you're actually lowering your magnesium storage because it needs magnesium. So if your magnesium is already low, you have to take a lower dose of it so you get it over time instead of trying to force your body to say, okay, I'm going to boost your vitamin D levels up quicker. You just end up getting sick.
You've done the magnesium, started on the vitamin D because you know that they work together, which they do. And you'd also
Yeah.
been reading, I presume, the information about dysautonomia, POTS, and how thiamine is important for the brain. You said you found my videos. Okay. And so you started thiamine alongside this as well.
Yes. I initially started to take um, TTFD. Then I realized my sulfur intolerance was very high. And then that's around the time I actually purchased a document from you that explained the paradoxical reaction and what all you need. So, like basically the entire B complex, potassium, and as well as molybdenum. I added in molybdenum because I realized that that would probably help me with the whole sulfur reaction. It helped, but not as much as the CoQ10 did. I ended up getting a liposomal CoQ10, and right now, let's see, we're at about June or July 2021, and I ended up swapping to thiamine HCl, 50 milligrams for 30 days. Tremors completely went away.
Okay.
Everything that was wrong went away at that point.
Right. Can I just cut you off there? Because some people are going to be interested. So you said that you had a negative reaction to TTFD, and again, this does happen, particularly people who have issues with sulfur metabolism. What were the symptoms that you developed when you tried TTFD? Because it can be very potent, but it's definitely not for everyone. So I think people would be interested in knowing, and I'm also interested in what were those kind of strange sulfur type symptoms that you're describing.
Okay, so I got the 50 milligram pills, and I only took one. And then after I took the first one, I ended up having severe itching, um, hives, like one blister, and like a weird smell. But the hives was enough for me to say, okay, I'm allergic to it. I'm gonna
Right.
leave it alone.
Okay.
And I didn't leave it alone. I actually popped the pill open, halved it, and tried to take 25, and then realized that was still too much. Tried to take 10, realized that was still too much as well. But the 10 actually did make me feel better. So although I still had a negative reaction to it, it actually helped me at the same time.
Okay.
But I realized that I should just try to go for a different form because if I do that, I can get rid of all my tremors and um, it also helped with my cramping.
Okay.
And I didn't realize that until I read that thiamine actually also helps with lactic acid buildup.
Yeah. Okay,
So,
okay. So that's when you decided enough of the TTFD, you're going to try different forms. So you got thiamine HCl. What dose did
mhm.
you use, and what did you notice after starting thiamine HCl? So what symptoms did you still have? Because you said that there was you noticed major improvement in tremors and some other things going on with the magnesium. You'd
Mhm.
started on the vitamin D at this point, but when you'd started the B1 thiamine HCl, what did you notice improved from using that?
So actually, my reactive hypoglycemia. Um, I would eat, and then like an hour after I eat, I felt like I haven't eaten in 6 hours, and I feel really weak, like I'm dizzy, feel like I'm going to pass out. So that was the main reason I would be eating like one meal throughout the entire day, because even though I wasn't hungry, I didn't want to keep losing weight, and I felt like my blood sugar was way too low. So in order to correct that, I was taking a thiamine HCl for 30 days. I'm at 50 milligrams, and that completely corrected the tremors and the reactive hypoglycemia.
Interesting. Okay, okay. And so how long did you stay on that? Because you eventually changed the form again, right? And started using a different type of B1 on top of that. So
Yeah.
what happened next?
So I'm guessing the demand for thiamine isn't really high. So at the place I was getting the thiamine HCl from, that was the only company that had 50 milligrams without all of the additives and fillers in it. So I was like, okay. And then they discontinued it because they weren't getting enough sales for it. I tried to call them and try to see if they could, like give me something from a last batch or something, but they couldn't. So I ended up swapping to benfotiamine at 150 milligrams of benfotiamine, and they had 50 milligrams of HCl in it. So I started taking that. So it's 200 milligrams total, and that worked perfectly for me as well after the thiamine HCl. So I didn't really have a periodical reaction to the thiamine HCl.
Just so that I've got the timeline correct. So in 2021, you got the diagnosis, you started using magnesium. Okay, so when did you start the vitamin D, the B complex, and the B1?
Um, I
Approximately.
started the B1 around like 4 months after the magnesium, and then I started taking the vitamin D like a month after that.
Okay.
So within a 6 month span is pretty much what that was. And added the B complex in after I ended up getting your document. I didn't realize I needed that with it.
And fast forward to today, I mean, compared to where you were, you used primarily three different nutrients. Although it sounds like you've experimented with a couple of other things, zinc, CoQ10. But when we were speaking before, you attribute most of the benefit to, first of all, the magnesium, vitamin D, and also the thiamine that you've been using. Is there anything else that you think have also played a significant role?
So one of my friends, he ended up going to Europe, and there was a company that had B complex that had nicotinamide inside of it, and you can only get it in Europe. So I had him get that for me and bring it back to America, and that actually worked out amazing for me as well. It was a pretty low dose of everything, so it was like drip feeding almost. Um, and I drink ginger tea every day. I read that ginger tea helps with clotting and it helps with inflammation and also helps. It's packed in thiamine as well.
Hmm.
So I just wanted to get thiamine through everything I did and also help with my digestion. So I wasn't throwing up anymore either. So pretty much help with everything, including migraines. I tried to take a probiotic, but with the reactive hypoglycemia, and I didn't realize dysbiosis, it was really not helping. It actually made my reactive hypoglycemia worse.
Huh.
And when I actually started to take more of it, because I realized that some people just have their reaction in the beginning and they get over it, it wasn't improving until I understood that vitamin D is what regulates the gut microbiome. So if I have low vitamin D, me taking a probiotic won't really do anything for me.
Okay.
So I completely cut out the probiotic, got my vitamin D levels up, and now when I take the probiotic, it works.
Okay. Okay. Now, here's a question. You heard you did you ever test vitamin D?
Yes, I tested at 14, no, 14 nanograms per milliliter.
Okay. Yeah. So low. So low. Definitely low.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. But you didn't go mega dose with the D. You actually went slow and steady at 2,500
Yes.
IU.
In early like 2000s, I would say like 2006, around that time period, there's a study from that time period that actually has a woman who was put in a clinical study for dysautonomia, and for 30 days she was given vitamin D, and her fainting stopped and everything else stopped. And when I saw that, I was like, I need to try this out, but I didn't want to hurt myself more. So I went at a very low dose, did the B complex, magnesium, thiamine, and I would say everything's pretty much attributed to those things. And I compare my blood work now to my blood work when I first got diagnosed. Um, my potassium levels were at like a 3.6. I never took potassium supplements, but now they're at like a 4.2,
Right.
which is perfect.
Right.
Um, and that's due to regulating everything, magnesium, vitamin D, everything.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So now, how are things now? Because we've spoken off this call, and you said that you're sitting at around what 80 to 85% improved. So
Yeah.
how are things now? What do you currently take? It's taken you what 2 years, 18 months of using nutrients in kind of in supplemental doses to get to a point where you are now actually studying neuroscience as a profession. So tell us about how you do it now.
So before, when I started taking the sucrosomia magnesium, I didn't want to implement anything else until I realized I could actually handle that alone. So for most of that period of time, it was just me taking magnesium alone before I added in everything else. And
Right.
then
Okay.
once I added in other things, that's when I was like, okay, it's working now. I didn't want to go too quickly because I've read a lot of people when they try to go too quickly, they actually put themselves back to where they started, and I didn't want that to happen. So I just realized that I wanted to end up helping people because not everyone has the means to research everything I research, and not everyone has the ability to um, have like a family that supports them and actually will help them get through what they're going through. Some people are alone. So if you're alone and you're bedridden, what really can you do? I mean, you can research, but you have to survive outside of what you're doing. So they're essentially hurting themselves more because there's not enough awareness on the topic itself. Um, and I ended up seeing a lot of people with dysautonomia getting fed through tubes, IV, um, not being able to do certain things, not being able to walk. Some people wheelchair bound. Seeing all those things made me just not want it to ever happen to me. So I tried to act quickly before it did because I've realized with how much weight that I lost, it probably would. So I ended up being lucky, finding out everything that I did when I did, and I just wanted to end up helping people after that.
I'm super happy that you came on, man. It's really great to hear the
Thank you.
fact that you managed to turn this around basically by yourself, and it really speaks to the potential of using vitamins and minerals, which is basically the currency that the body deals with. It makes
Exactly.
perfect sense when you look at it from a physiological perspective, but ultimately you've used these as the medicines that they are essentially designed to be. Especially when they prescribe medications which you try and actually makes you feel worse and may end up making the problem worse in the long run, in terms of a nutrient interaction perspective, because these things, like you were saying earlier, they do deplete us of these essential nutrients. And especially after something like head injury, there's a lot of super interesting research using antioxidants, using vitamins, using different types of supplements, which can essentially turn someone's situation around after they have experienced some kind of a head trauma. Now, we know that there's a lot of research on dysautonomia, but not many people really know of the connection between magnesium, thiamine, and dysautonomia. There's a lot. Dr. Derek Lonsdale, you're probably familiar with his stuff.
Yeah.
That was the primary focus of his career, was treating children with these kind of conditions, and he found the combination of B1, magnesium, and perhaps even vitamin D, I'm not sure, were pretty essential in terms of turning this situation around. And it sounds like you found something similar yourself. Thanks again as well for shedding light on this different type of magnesium. I had no idea it existed. So that's awesome. I'm gonna definitely check that out because I know a lot of people who react negatively to magnesium, particularly like you were saying, that irritates the stomach and things. So finding different forms and ways to actually get it into the cell, which might have better bioavailability, is pretty excellent. It's a great idea. Okay then. Well, look. Is there anything else you'd like to finish up with, or shall we call that a day?
I think that's pretty much it. We pretty much covered everything.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for coming on again, Wendell.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on, and hopefully your story acts as inspiration for others, because it is a pretty miraculous turnaround that you've managed to achieve. So excellent, and keep up the great work.
I definitely hope so.
Thanks.